White collar criminals are going unchecked, and 2022 was not any different. In fact, it was worse. Check out this headline: corporate and white collar prosecutions hit all-time low in FY fiscal year, folks, 2022. During the last fiscal year, which ended last September, only 4,180 white collar defendants were prosecuted. White collar prosecutions last year were lower than in any year during the Trump administration. Let me read that one more time. I need you to bold it, underline it, exclamation point, message in a bottle on a train and not on Southwest. White collar prosecutions last year were the lowest in any year during the Trump administration. FY 2022 figures are even lower than FY 2020 when, due to the pandemic and federal partial shutdown, federal criminal enforcement activities of all time were sharply curtailed, and we understood that. This after Biden promised to go after white collar criminals with a strategy on countering corruption. Promises made, baby, but promises not kept. Strategy on countering corruption. Let's take a look at them. Modernizing, coordinating, and resourcing US government efforts to better fight corruption. Curbing illicit finance. Holding corrupt actors accountable. Preserving and strengthening the multilateral anti-corruption architecture. All these damn words to say absolutely nothing. Improving diplomatic engagement and leveraging foreign assistance. Resources to advance policy goals. White House Gov. That's just a whole lot of nothingness. Just say you're gonna go after white collar criminals, okay? Keep it simple. So Big Mama and Big Papa can understand what you're saying. Cause you know what? You know, Mike, I served in the Cleveland City Council with a giant. I mean, she's not on this plane of existence anymore. But when directors would come to the council table, Cleveland City Council, with all kinds of fancy talk, she would say the following to them: that was clear as mud. And that stuff that I just rattled off was absolutely clear as mud.
It reminds me of when you're like an 18-year-old and you're trying to create a resume for the first time and you really want to sound professional. So you're like, I coordinated tasks for shift operations. It's like, just say you were a shift leader. Like you don't need to add all the fluff. It doesn't make it any more substantive. You could just tell that you're trying to BS it. Just say it that way. Just the least amount of words, that's preferable. But this story to me, it's sad that I feel so numb to it because it's so unsurprising, as if we needed more evidence that we live in a two-tier justice system. But here you are, in case you were still skeptical, we live in a two-tier justice system where the wealthy can get away with doing basically whatever they want, and poor people get prosecuted for smoking pot. Anything. It's so ridiculous, but this is the dystopian society that we live in. And I feel like most people are privy to this information now, that justice is certainly not equal. But for those two of you left who didn't know, well, now you know.
There it is, breaking news. Mike just broke news. Breaking news, we live in a two-tiered system where the wealthy and well-connected get away with a whole bunch of stuff in this country. We need to break this stuff up. Well, they got an F on this assignment, obviously, and they need to go and talk to a lot of grandmamas about how to make this simple and just go after white collar criminals. And on top of that, criminal referrals for white collar crimes are often not pursued at all. Let's take a look at this chart. Percentage of the federal criminal referrals prosecuted. And you can see all them lovely numbers right there. Not a whole lot. And the punishment these white collar criminals receive is a slap on the wrist, literally. The average prison sentence for white collar crimes such as fraud, like defrauding people, stealing their money, is only 27 months, even though white collar criminals can face sentences up to 30 years. These lengthy punishments rarely occur. Far more commonly, these criminals only face small sentences or fines. Michael, that's the story of America. Welcome to America.
Yeah, exactly. And they do this because they know that they can get away with it. They know that they're privileged, and they, even if they were referred for prosecution, they can afford attorneys. And so because they know that they can get away with it, they do it. I mean, this knowledge, it changes their behavior, right? I know that I can't walk into a store and just steal a PlayStation 5 because I know they would lock me up in jail. But if I could get away with just taking a PlayStation 5, would I? Maybe. But I know that there are boundaries. The law treats just normal people different than they treat elites, and that's something that people need to realize. I think part of the problem with America is that we have this idea that maybe we shouldn't be so hard on the rich and elites because I could be an elite someday. It's not going to happen. You're statistically more likely to get struck by lightning or bitten by a shark. You're not going to become a millionaire or a billionaire. Statistically, it's very unlikely. So this is why we need to enforce the laws on these elites. We need to tax these elites and treat them like everyone else. I feel like this shouldn't need to be said, but it does need to be said, unfortunately, because when you live in a late stage capitalist society, these things, like, we kind of come to just accept that this is normal when really we shouldn't be okay with this. We shouldn't be desensitized. We should be furious when we see stats like this, especially considering the white collar crime compared to like immigration and narcotics. Like, we see what the government's priorities are.
Absolutely. We should be enraged. And look, I mean, Mike, you're absolutely right. Statistically speaking, everybody that's searching to be that multimillionaire and billionaire, look, hey, keep reaching for the sky. I don't want to crush your dreams. But the likelihood of that happening, it's not going to happen. You're going to be closer to the poorest person than you are to the ultra wealthy. But even if you were fortunate enough to become ultra wealthy, would you cheat the system? Would you cheat like that? Would you want to see a two-tiered system where poorer people get treated differently, where their lives matter less? I mean, really, would you want to be that kind of rich person or ultra wealthy person? I wouldn't want to be that kind of person either. So, look, reach for the stars, but don't be a crook doing it. Riding on private planes, starting a newsletter to say that you wasn't the crypto crook that you are. Looking at you, Bankman Fried.